Check one.
I can hear you.
All right, excellent. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our next iteration of the mental health series. Shout out, special shout out to Jay back over here with Paul. If you don't know now, you know. Ming, really cool and very excited to be get access to the. Soak it all in. So today's topic, we're gonna be talking about anger. I introduce myself, I guess, if you know me at this point. My name is Paul Fontana. I have a working as a therapist at a yeah, I'm very excited to be series. I got a lot of just the amazing, interesting information that I've learned. I'm just very excited to be passing this stuff along. Kind of gauging some interest from some of the last ones. Kind of like anger was, it's something that I've struggled with in my life, and probably so today the hope is just to kind of break down what's happening in the brain as far as anger. Talk about different anger styles and just understand the relationship like our thoughts and how reality, anger, um, and yeah, maybe like a few hope with it as well. So further ado, first off, I just want to say right off the bat, is it wrong to feel anger? No, not at all. Like I think culturally we kind of have this thing where it's not to be angry. Don't be angry. Suppress the anger, keep it down. And I don't think that that's really the healthiest way to approach anger. It's okay to feel anger. We just want to understand our anger and make sure that it's. So what is unhealthy is allowing anger to kill you or to hurt others. So right off the bat, just want to say that it is not wrong to feel anger. It's okay if you feel angry. Just try to keep it to a degree. Well, keep it to yourself. Right from the beginning. So we'll start with just talking about what actually is anger. So here went to the stress and anxiety. So it's our old friend, the amygdala. Right? Amygdala is the fight or flight part of our brain. Fight, flight, and freeze. So when we talk about stress and anxiety, it's kind of like a large umbrella of fight, flight, or freeze response. And today, anger is just one branch of that fight, flight, or response. Can anyone guess what anger is in fight, flight, or freeze? Fight, right. It's just the fight response of our amygdala. So that's the amygdala right there, located right at the top of the brain stem, right in the middle of the brain. The idea of this is like it's arguably the most primitive part of our brain. It's been essential for survival our entire species, right? Amygdala, you can think of it kind of like a valve, right? And the valve turns on, and then how much is it turning on, and what is it basically is a stress hormone that it releases when it's activated. Stress hormones, namely cortisol and so when our amygdala, which doesn't really have like a conscious way of thinking for itself, when it gets activated, you know, it's immediately overriding every part of our brain. So things like the frontal lobe, which is associated with like rational thinking and thought, that is turned down while the amygdala is turned up. They kind of switch roles. The amygdala, it's like we're in danger. We don't need to think rationally right now. We just survive. So as soon as that amygdala turns on, you can think of it kind of like a scale, right? Like more high up the amygdala is on, the down, vice versa. So just a little bit of context background about what is actually happening. So some of you may remember this from the stress and anxiety workshop that we taught. Amygdala being activated, sending those stress hormones to the body long term has effects on our health. So that can include decreased immune function, right? Like our immune system's tired, your body's working all things. It's cardiovascular strain, having a high heart rate. When you're stressed out, common sense out is an escalated heart rate. So if your resting heart rate is just really high all the time, it's pain. Breathing. Again, kind of going back to this fight or flight, our amygdala is meant to, cause physiological response to danger, which includes that high heart rate and high breathing rate, and to help us, escape from danger quicker, away from danger, fight the danger. Change in mental status, memory problems, right? Who here has like gotten into a big argument and then got like bills? It's just I remember I was pissed off, but I don't remember what we talked about actually. Because again, when the amygdalas turn on, other parts of the brain get example. Hormonal problems, skin issues, hair loss, right? Like kind of classic seeing people age too very quickly. Really interesting. If you go on the internet, you can look up like presidents like from the first day in office, last day in office. Crazy, just aged. Of course, digestion. So when the amygdala is activated, we're in fight or flight mode. We're shooting out. Our body's way of basis gets compromised. Not actually able to digest food as well because instead of sending blood to the digestion, our arms and legs, fight or any other ones you can think of effects on the body that anger have. Yeah, inflammation. That's kind of like this things that doctors talk about as far as like what's causing pain or just body or body. A lot of inflammation, which inflammation is just a symptom. Inflammation comes from a lot of things, but absolutely. Any other things? Anything people I know when I get angry, I'll takes. A lot of that can be all the time, like
Probably.
tension. Status. So I guess we'll kind of start breaking down, with anger styles. So I dropped a PDF. Jake, I think it's a quiz. It's from the book called "Letting Go of Anger" by Ronald D. Potter S. Potter. And it's a really interesting book. It's one that I have a lot of the kids that I work with, kind of read. At least take the anger styles quiz. It's a pretty short quiz, about 30 yes or no. So go ahead and take start filling this out, and then we'll go down. And in the quiz, it'll actually tell you how to score it. So just take some time, fill it out. Read at the bottom; it'll tell you kind of how to assess your stuff. Don't bother reading about your anger style right now unless you really want to skip ahead because we are going to talk about each one. But go ahead and figure yours out.
For those online, I just put it in the chat. See,
Donald Efron. Oh, God. Yeah, go ahead and fill it out. Just answer all the questions. It'll kind of tell you. Don't bother reading about your anger style yet. We're going to talk about. Probably going to be maybe one more than another, but probably attention to circle 2 or 3. Wow, that one. Let's jump into it. So we're talking about anger avoidance. This is one that I tend to don't like anger or is afraid of anger. That can either be afraid because you don't know what you're gonna do or you don't know what other people are gonna do. A lot of times people are strong, and angry. Oftentimes they'll feel good about themselves when they get mad at a situation. They actually get them mad, but they just kind of press it or in general, like if I know I didn't get angry, that's an accomplishment. Find themselves sweeping a lot of issues underneath the rug. The the principle about if you don't take care of it now, it's just going to kind of struggle with being assertive. Fall into this category may tend to go more of like a passive route, just sort of it's fine, don't worry about it. Like I don't, we don't need to talk about the thing that actually kind of pissed me off. We can just sort of just don't worry about it. It's fine. And sometimes that can leave the person feeling a little bit walked over. So, somebody there's like an example that was in there. First off, does anybody, Britt, this one resonate with you? You want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah. I'll get a little closer to the microphone. My stepmom was a biatch and not super nice, and so I totally know why I do this, because I was scared to be her, basically. So I did the opposite. But I've been working on this one for probably the last year or so, because I feel like I am tired of being nice and I want to be kind. Mm-hmm. So I need to stand up for myself when it's appropriate, but not let people walk all over me. Yeah. And so it's been like a struggle to face those feelings sometimes when I am frustrated and I don't voice myself. But when they talk about your throat chakra and everything, mm-hmm. I feel like I need to vocalize when things are not going the way I want them, but also not being a psychopath.
Yeah, it's that balance. And especially, I don't know how long your stepmom was in your life, growing up, but developmentally, this may come as a result of people not showing how to properly express anger, right? Not having a role model to show you it, here's how to be angry in a dignified, respectful, and healthy way, right? So either that is because somebody would have huge blow-ups all the time, and you know that that's not the way to do it, but the only alternative that I can think of is just to keep my trap shut and not say anything, which is also unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
You had a hand up too, Elise?
Yeah, I definitely avoided because my parents fought all the time, and then
mm-hmm.
my mom remarried and her and my stepdad bicker all the time. So yeah, they're not good models of it. So I just avoided things a lot for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to assert. It was just either too scary or too I would get worked up and not be calm.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, the two extremes. Was that a hand from in there? Yeah, what we got? Let's hear it. Love the online engagement. Oh, Ariana, what's up?
They can't hear you yet.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sick. I typically tend to subdue my anger, I hide it until it explodes. I grew up in a really abusive household, so typically I kind of just hide it and don't talk about it until all of a sudden I just get pushed over the edge, and typically it's physically, which I've been really working on, when to anger management and all that fun stuff. So but it's definitely something you're constantly working on it. Because you don't want to hurt people when you're angry. That's never an option. So.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Love the meme.
Love the meme. Yeah, that one seemed fitting. All right. Anybody else for anger avoidance?
Yeah, I guess. Or is somebody else online?
No, I think you're good. You take it away.
Yeah, my parents were both explosive, but then they they would like get to the point of like exploding on each other and then like lock themselves in separate rooms and then just drink, and it was just like what, like this is not like a good like conflict resolution at all, like model like for growing up at all.
Yeah.
So like I personally just shut down. Like I'll get small stuff to like the point if I get pushed, but I try not to. But yeah, it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
Like seeing those patterns like as an adult, I'm like trying to like re-dewire my brain to do that. I'm like work through it instead of just like shutting down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important, you know, just put in a plug, you know, as I'm not a parent, but I work with families, and one of the most common things that I see is like families that kind of adopt that mindset of like, yeah, we just try not to fight or not to get angry, and it's like, well, now your kid doesn't know how to properly express anger, which is like a very real emotion that people are going to experience. So like even if you lose your temper, you flip out or something in front of your kid, you know, like it's okay, just follow up about it. Like, hey, I raised my voice earlier, like I try not to do that, and I was just upset, and you know, I'm sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. Like, you know, that's all it takes, you know. So let's keep it rolling. We got sneaky anger. Don't let others know that you're angry, right? You kind of keep it a little bit under wraps, right? More of kind of a passive-aggressive approach to anger. You know, sometimes the person might not even know how angry they are themselves. Oftentimes you can come out sideways, see yourself as like a victim in certain situations. But again, you know, it's still kind of more of like a suppression of the anger. And oftentimes will justify the shortcomings that you have when you get upset and when people hold you accountable. They kind of gave this example in the book that was like, you know, someone was responsible for like making cookies for some church event, and then like she forgot and was like really passive aggressive or you know whatever when someone was upset with her about it. You know, so it's just kind of this like little kind of insidious, like I'm gonna pretend like I'm not angry, but I'm actually angry. It's similar to anger avoidance, but like a little bit more subdued to the point where you might not even realize it. Did anybody get one for this?
I think I did maybe.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Internal
So what were the questions for that again?
I often tell people I'll do what they want, but then I forget. I frequently say things like, yeah, but, and I'll do it later. People tell me I must be angry, but I'm not sure why. I said no to this the third one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can create narratives,
Yeah.
and then I will just be words up and be like, well, it's not worth talking about. Like, you know, you gotta pick your battles sometimes.
Yeah.
But depending how much it creeps up or if you can like let it go, you know, sometimes I'll just be like in this little like, oh my god, this, like.
Right. Like next thing you know, like it started with one.
Now I've got a whole narrative of like
Yeah.
something.
It's like these little threads that just
dramatic
like weave
narrative
together, and eventually it's like, yeah. I mean, that's kind of actually the best way to describe sneaky anger. I think it would be like
I could take it personally, even though they're probably not even aware.
yeah, like you know, it starts with like one thread of anger, and then like another little thread of anger, and you're like, it's just a thread. It's just a thread. Next thing you know, you got a giant quilt that's like so.
You're ready to explode or come
Yeah.
say something sideways.
Yeah, and you know, again, kind of going back to this like averse to conflict, right? Like you don't talk about it, and you don't like people trying to talk to you about it, right? Anger turned inward. All right, this one's pretty common for a lot of people. Again, kind of going back to thinking about trauma, like people who've experienced trauma tend to fall into this one as well. You put all your blames into yourself, right? You to see yourself as a safer target for the anger. I fall into this one as well. You know, it's just it can be helpful insofar as self-reflection, right? So like it's really healthy to be like, what's my part in this conflict? You know, like how could I have done this different? How could I have made this situation better? Like that's healthy to a degree, but when you are picking yourself apart because you know you're trying to you know find this little kind of thread that you can attach the anger to yourself so that you don't have to bother being angry at the other person, don't have to deal with potentially repairing with that person, talking to them, addressing the conflict. Instead, it's just easier. Let me just focus on how I screwed up in that situation. Too much of it can increase feelings of helplessness or hopelessness, right? You're putting yourself into this box, you know, that's like, I get angry only at myself. And, you know, to a certain degree, like, that approach of look at yourself can be empowering for people, you know, where it's like if you're always in conflict with somebody and it's always their fault, you lose your power that way. But if it's always my fault and I keep screwing up and there's nothing I can do because I'm just a screw up and that's just me, then yeah, you're also going to feel hopeless. So you don't want to make this one a habit. You know, you definitely want to be able to self-reflect and look at yourself and think about how you can do things better. But you don't want to do that at the cost of, you know, addressing significant external problems, either with somebody else or with the situation. Anybody get this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Want to share?
I just go into the beat up mode.
Yeah.
Like, what, you're stupid, you're an idiot. Like, I say it almost without thinking sometimes, but I've gotten better at catching it and being like, no, maybe like that was a bad, like a not the greatest choice, but like, it's okay.
Yeah. Totally.
Like, yeah, I don't like talking to other people that way. Like, why am I doing it to me?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a good assessment for anger towards yourself, or really just in general. It's like, if somebody was to talk to your best friend the way that you talk to yourself, would you stand for that? Would that be acceptable?
No.
Answer for me, I've come a long way, but it used to be like, hell no.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I've grown a little bit.
Yeah. So, anger turned inward, another really important one to think about. Got sudden anger. Sudden anger comes on quickly, go away quickly. And while it's there, you're just putting it all out there for everyone to see, right? I'm just all of a sudden, just here it is, explode, make a whole spectacle out of it, and it goes away. But in that short amount of time, it can be very damaging, right? This is like I was fine 1 minute, and then the next thing I know, I'm like, you know, breaking a window or something. You know, and yeah, it ties in losing control, right? You know, sudden anger, this one's very scary because it can be like literally 1 minute you're fine and then some trigger happens and then all of a sudden like you see red and boom, like you don't know what you did. And, you know, in very significant cases, like this is where people get sent to jail, right? Road rage, you know, they find out their partner's cheating on them or something, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, you snap and then you do something that you can never undo, right? So sudden anger, another one. Anybody get this one? Yeah? Want to share?
No, yeah, totally. I mean, it takes a lot for me to get angry. But if I get angry, I'm not, you know, my kid's online, she knows. Usually it's not physically violent, but it's my words. Like
right.
My words, like, and I know that like the little intelligence that I have left is used to specifically hurt.
Yeah, the only frontal lobe is going towards, how can I make this? What do I know about this person?
Yeah, so, but I'm aware of it, so I'm very careful, and usually I just go for a walk or do something or say, I'm very angry right now, you'd better get to your room.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. It's like how to identify like the early warning signs of like getting angry and what you can do to basically intervene and not spiral out of control. Yeah, Britt?
That used to be me, but most of my kids have grown up now, so I don't have to lose control. But I think part of it was just that. It was the fact that I felt I was losing control over my kids, which is total bullshit. Like, we shouldn't treat our children as like, you know, do what I say or you're gonna be in trouble, like that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But as a mom, when you have multiple kids and they're just going crazy and doing, you know, naughty stuff, sometimes you elevate your voice or you say stuff like you said, Sandrine, and then you're like, ah, damn it, totally fucked up. Like, I'm so sorry, kids. I love you, I promise. But yeah, like my kids kind of learned if mom's like not eating right or didn't get a nap or whatever was kind of going on, like, oh, she's pissed, like, scatter.
Yeah. You're speaking into even, like, you know, the warning signs of, like, when am I about to, like, go spiraling? And then it's like, well, what happens before the potential spiral, right? Like, did I have my nap? Am I drinking enough water? We're going to talk about all those things for sure. Shame-based anger. Anybody get this one? It might be a little less common. So, shame-based anger. This often comes from people who need more attention or are sensitive to criticism. It's like that kind of similar to anger towards inward, but you get angry because you feel ashamed. Often connects to feelings of self-loathing or not feeling good enough. So if you walk around with this core belief about yourself, it's like, I'm not good enough. And then someone says, hey, I think you could have cleaned up that, kitchen sink a little bit better. It's like, see, like, I am a piece of shit, right? It's hard not to use those things as reinforcement. And then, because of that trigger of the shame, you tend to get angry, you lash out. So lashing out on others to avoid those feelings of shame, especially to those who are close to them, right? We kind of know, that it's not okay to, lash out at your boss or your coworker, but then if you're walking around with those feelings all day and you're triggered and you're shoving it down, and then you get home and your partner says like, yeah, you could have cleaned the sink a little bit better, or don't leave your dishes out, then all of a sudden it's like, bah, here it all is. Like, all of this, like, oh, and my coworker said this and that, I'm a piece of crap, and, I'm angry because you're reminding me of that. This resonate with anybody?
Yeah, I've
Yeah?
seen it happen in a relationship.
Yeah.
With this one for me, it's the feeling of you're doing the best that you can, but you feel that no matter what you do is ever going to be good enough.
Yeah.
And then it isn't, and then you're like, what could I have done better? I tried my best, and then that shame comes in with a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Totally.
And then it kind of fills up like a balloon.
Yeah.
And it just gets bigger and bigger, and eventually it pops.
Yeah. And with this one, it's like, like who's actually, who's the one saying that nothing you do is good enough? Is it the person who tells you, like, please don't leave your dishes in the sink? Or is it your narrative about the person telling you, right? And we're going to talk more about that. I'm very excited to get to the more CBT part, in case you haven't noticed. All right, deliberate anger. All right, this one's fun. Planned anger, usually aware of what they're doing, right? This is people who use anger to really control other people, or use anger to get what they want. Sometimes, or usually in the beginning of whatever deliberate anger episode is coming out, usually in the beginning, the person's not actually pissed off about what's going on, right? But they might get actually angry. They might work themselves up over the process, but this is like more intentional, right? Works short term, for sure, right? Getting angry at somebody and then them doing what you want because they're afraid of how you're going to react or something. It's pretty powerful. It does work. But long term, yeah, you're going to completely break down all your relationships, and no one's going to want to stick around and be around that kind of stuff, especially once they realize what you're doing. I actually see this a lot. A kid will be in like a family session and they'll get like pissed off because their, parent set some boundary with them, and then after the session, I'm like, are you really actually angry about that? Because that really wasn't that big of a thing. And they're like, no, I wasn't actually angry. Like, I just kind of wanted to, like, either get the thing to change, or, I wanted to make them feel bad because I don't like the thing, and it's like, not cool. It's manipulation. That's called what it is. It's manipulation. So this one, if you notice that you do it yourself, just bring your awareness to it, because I do think a lot of times this is unconscious. Like, sometimes it's unconscious. I would stand to believe that people tend to make a habit out of this, and then it just kind of becomes this automatic response that they don't think about. Somebody sets a boundary with them that they don't like, or somebody gives them a piece of feedback that they don't like, and they just automatically go to that spot, even if they're not actually that upset about it. But this is the one where it's like, if you do some soul searching and you do this, probably want to get this one correct real quick, because this can for sure be one of the most detrimental, because there is that element of consciously doing it, right? Anybody experience with this? I know I did with my parents as teenagers, for sure. Most teenagers have done this. Would anybody want to share, be it from teenage years or, yeah?
I use this a lot because of my past experiences where I would use my situation to get able to react emotionally when I was younger out of this state of fear. I quickly realized that I was doing it and that it was not a healthy behavior, but it was something that I did in survival mode.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, children use this because, you know, why wouldn't you? You don't have that kind of like forward thinking. It's like, oh, this is a tool in my toolbox. I know that if I get angry, I'll get the thing that I want. They don't have that fully developed brain. So, yeah, where it can stick around is if it's like, okay, like this is actually how I've gotten my needs met, like, you know, growing up, you know, and if it's a survival thing, then absolutely it can stick with you. Kate, do you have a hand too?
Yeah, I definitely did it as a kid. You know, like just a little rat kind of doing it to manipulate my parents. Yeah, definitely tantrumed on them. But I had a really close friend that, you know, recently I experienced this with her. She had a lot of trauma, and she did it, you know, really just to manipulate people and to get responses out of people and to control people, you know, and it backfired. But also, you know, people let it control them. You know, it was kind of like, feel bad for me kind of thing, and it worked with some people, so it was just kind of very sad, and you know, the boundaries weren't there, and it was just kind of crazy. So I don't know. I think it was a personality thing too. So
yeah,
I don't know.
For sure.
I'm also experiencing that with a friend right now. It's like,
tough.
and it's not like just happening to me too. Like I'm talking to other friends that they've done it too. Like where we've all kind of set our boundaries, and they just don't care to listen. They just switch around.
Right.
Like I'm the victim in the situation. It's about me. Blah blah blah. It's like we all have our own crap. If you could just set that down for 2 seconds, this is all I'm asking. Can it just be a simple request of just please stop doing this and move forward?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Because
don't
that's the
wanna
only way to continue a friendship at this point.
Totally.
Ugh, people, man.
Yeah, no, it's tough, right? And if you know somebody's doing this, you know, like in your life, yeah, like if you are up for it, give that person feedback. Let them know, because this one is definitely one of the most damaging ones to relationships, and it's important for people to understand. Like, look, like this is not how you keep people in your life. You don't get to use anger as a way to get your needs met. Excitatory anger allows people to feel something, man. Provides excitement in their lives. You know, not necessarily fun, but it can feel powerful. Gives you like a high, right? Like this, like, you know, righteous indignation that you get by getting worked up over this, that, or the other thing, right? People become dependent on this and become dependent on it to feel good about themselves. You know, or not to feel good about themselves, but anger to just feel good, feel something, right? And then it can escalate over time. So you see this a lot with people who struggle with depression, where it's like, okay, like I feel pretty numb most of the time, but then I get pissed off about something and it's like, whoa, like there's some life, right? So excitatory anger, definitely, you know, one that, in the right circumstances, all right, excitatory anger, good example of it. If you're watching sports, right? I'm watching a hockey game, go Devils, you know, if you know, I allow myself at times to get like angry at the TV, not like actually angry, but like, you know, it's like fun to like get charged up, right? But this is a kind of thing where it's like, if you know you're using this as an emotional spark because you're not feeling an emotional spark in your life, you got to be careful, because this can also lead to the destruction of relationships, the same way deliberate anger can. This one's not as conscious as deliberate anger. It's something that I think people tend to fall into when they've hit like a rut in their life, or they just feel like, you know, just nothing's really exciting them in their life. So it's like, oh, anger. Like I can get angry about something, and then you feel that feeling in your chest, in your arms. Like, it can feel good for some people. Anybody get this? A little less common. But again, you see this a lot with people who struggle with really serious chronic depression, because again, it's that emotional spark. All right, habitual hostility. Anger is a bad habit. Kind of going back to a little bit of what we talked about before, it's just sort of like this automatic response that you get. Find yourselves getting angry over small things, right? Like, oh, they didn't, put down the salt in my apartment complex. Like, oh man, it's like 6 a.m. when I get outside, and it's like, why am I getting upset about this? Like, seem to look for things to get angry about, which again can even stem back to like excitatory anger, right? Like kind of looking for things to get angry. So you tend to find the worst in people, things, etc. Who here has like met that person where it's just like it'd be the most beautiful day outside and you're like, wow, it's really nice out, and they're like, yeah, well, global warming, and it's just like, dude, so everyone, global warming it's a thing, but like, or you go to the movies and you're like, wow, that was a really good movie, and it's like, oh, it's too long, just stuff like that. Like it's like there's always something, right? It gives them a sense of predictability, right? Like if you're just always kind of like, yeah, like the world, I get, who was it, Eeyore, like Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh, which is like, yeah, just another day, just gray clouds and blah, blah, blah. Like there is a sense of predictability, which I think, again, going back to trauma, like for somebody who's experienced trauma in their lives, having a sense of predictability just in how shitty everything is, that actually can be very comforting, even though it's obviously not super pleasant, and you can keep you trapped, right? You stay trapped in this anger, trapped in this mindset where it's like, just like it's an automatic response. You wake up in the morning, it's like first thing, it's like, all right, what can I complain about now? Anybody get this one? Or even if it's not like a regular thing for you, anyone ever notice just like a day, where it's like, yeah, I'm having one of those days.
Yeah.
Where it's just like automatically, like I didn't even hear the end of your sentence and I'm already thinking about why you're wrong. Something like that.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think of like the saying, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am so the opposite, that when I meet people that are the habitual hostility, I'm just like, what does it get for you to just bitch and moan all the time about everything? Like it's so opposite of what I've worked through, that I'm like, maybe I was like this a long time ago and I just worked through it, and now I just am like, why are people still stuck on the little things?
So you can't see it up there. Predictability.
Yeah.
That's like definitely one answer to it. Probably not the case for every person who falls into habitual hostility, but yeah, there's a sense of predictability. I think another one that people get out of it is like, especially like in our culture, like there's something about like, oh yeah, like I'm too good for that. Like the movie wasn't that good. Like there's some kind of like superiority that you feel by just like kind of looking down on just everything in life. So I think that's part of it. Anybody else, just other reasons why somebody might fall into habitual hostility?
I feel like, struggling like with depression and all that, I feel like I almost get like addicted to addicted to that mindset and like the melancholy and just like the bullshit attitude, and like I have to pull myself out of it sometimes because I'll just be like, this isn't good for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little poetic, right? Like there's something poetic about living life in black and white, right? Yeah, the emo kid.
Right. Maybe it kind of stems to like an ego thing too, where they think that they know that everything's bad, so any glimpse of hope, they just shut it down because they don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
That belief that things will get better. It's just like, I've already come to terms with this. Like,
yeah,
get on my level. Like, everything sucks.
For sure. Yeah,
it will always suck.
I think
it's predictable.
Yeah, the nihilist mentality, right? Of just like, yeah, nothing matters. Like, I don't know, nihilism I guess was cool for a while, but after a certain point, like, is it really worth it? All right, fear-based anger, often suspicious of people, things, irrational paranoia, jealousy, and really the main point for this one is it gives you a sense of protection. If I'm angry about these things that I'm afraid of, I feel like I'm guarding myself. I'm staying protected from it. Racism, right? It's like a classic example of fear-based anger. Granted, it's like one of many examples. Like for another example of fear-based anger is like, if you had somebody that, they were supposed to do something and they forgot, and you're worried about the fact that they forgot, getting angry at that person, that's fear-based anger, right? So, you know, when you're really worried, and we'll talk about, you know, secondary emotions with anger, but really like I would rather feel angry than feel vulnerable. I'd rather feel angry than feel scared. I'd rather feel angry than feel fill in the blanks. So instead it's like, okay, whatever feeling that I'm afraid of feeling, I'm going to turn it into anger instead. Anybody get this one? Yeah?
I have this one when I say I'll do something and then I don't do it. I then get angry when somebody asks me why it isn't done, because it's not I'm not angry at them, but I'm angry at myself for not doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, why do you keep bothering me to get this done? I said I'd get it done. I've just been really busy.
Yeah.
Or this or that, and it's because I don't want the fear of admitting that I am human and make mistakes and I just couldn't do it.
Totally.
I get angry instead sometimes.
Yeah, it's good to have that awareness. Okay, moral anger is another one. Feel like they have the right to be angry when others break a rule, whether that's like a small rule within your small community or house or whatever, or like the, you know, global stage. Feel like they have the moral high ground in the arguments. They may say they're not angry for themselves, but they're angry about the cause, you know, and most of the time that's a lie. I mean, I think it can be you are angry for the cause, but just admit it. You're also angry because you're just angry. A lot of black and white thinking about certain situations. Struggle to understand people who have the different opinion. They struggle to understand where they're coming from, you know, which again, understanding versus agreeing, two different things. So you can understand where someone's coming from, even if maybe you don't agree with them, but they struggle to understand that. Can lead to crusading, right? Which is, you know, just going around, you know, just telling everyone how they should be, what they should be doing, etc. And they prioritize being right over the relationship. That's a huge one that I talk with my families about. It's like, okay, so you're upset because so-and-so, you know, said or did this thing, or, you know, you're upset because, you know, you don't think it's fair that you got this consequence for breaking this rule. Okay, do you want to be right in this situation, or do you want to preserve the relationship? You know, so ask yourself that question. It's like, what's more important right now? Is it more important that I'm right and I make this other person know that I'm right, or can I just lay off of it and make sure that the relationship is preserved? And sometimes it's important, right? Like, moral anger, not necessarily, again, kind of going back to, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, I'm angry at a lot of things happening in this country these days, right? Like, obviously, you know, there's a lot of division, hatred, you know, mismanagement of a lot of issues going on, and it's okay to be angry about that. What you do want to make sure is that it's still kept in check, and that it's not, you know, you're not creating some narrative or story about it that's like, I'm doing the right thing just by getting really angry all the time. It's like, you can be angry and channel it appropriately. A lot of times with moral anger, it's people who aren't channeling it appropriately. Okay. Resentment/hate. So basically this is hardened anger. This is what happens when you let your anger just stew and crystallize and just become entrenched in who you are, entrenched in the relationship with the other person. It seems impossible to forgive the other person or people. Spend mental energy thinking about their downfall, right? See self as innocent or the victim, and then this goes back to that old phrase, it's like you're drinking a poison and hoping the other person dies from it, right? So really kind of letting that anger compound and turn into hate. You know, it's not good for you, it's not good for the other person. You can be angry, you can be hurt, you can be upset, but allowing that to turn into hate in your heart, just, you know, we saw what it does to your body, right? All those long-term effects of just constantly stewing over it and thinking about it, right? Cool. Any thoughts on anger styles? Cool. All right. So now we're getting into probably my favorite part of this, the cognitive behavioral approach. So who here's heard of cognitive behavioral therapy? And it's like a very popular in the last like 30 or so years, really kind of making waves because it talks about how our thoughts create our reality. And with this, I think this approach and this specific type of therapy, this theoretical framework, can really kind of help us conceptualize our anger, figure out the anger at its source and help us learn to manage it better. So meat and potatoes right here. So start by talking about Albert Ellis. He developed this, he developed rational emotive behavioral therapy in, I believe, the 70s, which later became cognitive behavioral therapy. And the idea is that we have thoughts in response to whatever things are happening. The thing in front of us happens, we have a thought about it. That thought leads to emotions, which also lead to behaviors. So basically the idea is that if we can learn to change our thoughts and learn to change our, the way that we think about things that are happening, we change our whole reality. We change the emotions that we feel, we change the behaviors that we have, we change our whole worldview. So really the idea here is the ABCDEs. All right, so starts with A, activating event. Like I said, the thing happens. My favorite example, somebody cuts me off in traffic. Right? So the thing happens. A car, well, it even cuts off, you can say, is a judgment about it. A car pulls out in front of me on the highway faster than I wanted to, closer than I wanted to. Right? Belief about the event. That motherfucker just cut me off. He thinks he's better than me. He's, arrogant. This jerk. This guy, he did that. He's wrong. He did that to me, right? Those are my beliefs about the situation. I have those, are automatic, right? Consequential emotions and behaviors, right? What emotions am I feeling? Angry, right? What behaviors might I have? Probably sticking up this finger.
Hand movements.
Right? Certain hand movements. Gestures.
More animated
words
talking.
coming out of my mouth,
More
right?
animated, yeah.
Yeah. So ABC, guy, cuts me off in traffic. Belief, he's a jerk, he's an a-hole, whatever. Consequential emotions, I'm angry, I'm stewing, I'm cussing to myself, etc., etc. Now here's the good part. D, dispute. Dispute your irrational beliefs. Well, what if that guy just really has to take a shit? Right? Like, have I considered that as a possibility at all? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But as long as I'm operating from the belief that this guy is just a jerk, and that's just how it is, I'm going to feel angry. But instead, if I make the conscious choice to instead, hey, maybe this guy just really needs to take a dump. Maybe he's really, has a baby on the way in the hospital. His wife just texted him saying she's in labor, right? Like, I don't know. I don't actually know what's going on with this other person. I can assume that they're probably a jerk. And, 9 times out of 10 in the state of Utah, probably are, right?
You don't have a driver's license. Maybe.
Right. But the effect, right? I have a change in my state. So, activating event, I get cut off, I'm angry about it, I notice, okay, I'm having an emotional response to this right now. What other realities might be possible other than the reality of this guy's just a jerk? David Foster Wallace has this really great speech. It's called "What Is Water?" And he talks about, there's like these two fish that are swimming in a lake, and one fish says, "Oh, the water's really warm today," and the other fish goes, "What the hell is water?" And the whole idea is like we're just so wrapped up in our own world and our default mode reality all the time that we don't even consider the possibility that we're in a default mode reality and that there's other realities that we can operate from. So, again, it's like once you notice I'm having these beliefs that are leaving me to feel this way that maybe I don't want to feel, see if there's maybe other beliefs that you can hold about this situation and see where that gets you. And sometimes it might feel like you're tricking yourself and you don't want to spiritually bypass or brush things off. You don't want to suppress the anger, whatever, but another example is I get again, road rage. It's the most common thing for me in my life. When I find myself getting angry, it's 9 times out of 10 behind the wheel. And, so I'll even catch myself in the moment. If I am, sitting in a light and someone's a little bit too slow on that left green arrow and I'm about to get stuck, it infuriates me. Immediately, I'm like, go, you stupid! And I'll cut myself off. I'll just be like, you person who's not driving the way that I would prefer you to drive, right? That's the belief. It's not that the person is a piece of crap or whatever. The belief is they're not driving the way that I would prefer them to drive. And that's me. That's ownership. That's my stuff.
Most of the time, I just say 9 times out of 10, it's an old person, and I feel
Totally.
That when you catch up to them.
yeah, you're right. Seriously, 9 times out of 10, they're old people,
Yep.
and I'm just like, you know what? These last 5 years are going to be rough for them, so it's okay.
Yeah, totally. That's absolutely it. That's the name of the game right there. So let's talk about in part with this, right? So really a large part of recognizing anger is also recognizing what's underneath the anger, right? And if our belief is, that this person's a jerk or whatever, that might be true on one level, but there also might be something a little bit deeper on another level. For example, is it that I'm really pissed off that the person's not driving fast enough? Or am I actually feeling anxious and a little bit ashamed because I'm running late for work, and I never run late for work, and I'm just frustrated because I'm late for work, and I'd rather put all of that on the person who's going slow rather than take some ownership over the fact that I'm the one running late and I'm stressed about that, right? So we have the event trigger, the activating event, right? We have a primary emotion or a secondary, or and or secondary emotion. So the primary emotions can enjoy things like joy, fear, sadness, shame, disappointment, helpless, hopeless, despair, inadequate, worthless. They're the very vulnerable emotions, right? Including joy, right? Sometimes feeling good can be a vulnerable emotion. So if any of those emotions feel unsafe, or they feel like I would rather not feel this, then we go, let's turn that into a secondary, or not even turn it into, but let's add a layer of secondary emotion on top of it. Anger, hatred, numb, shutting down, narrow, rigid, protecting, right? So, so the primary emotion leads to cycle. So basically the idea is if we operate from the secondary emotion and we're not actually attuning to the deeper core issue that is underneath all of it. So instead, if I choose, not even choice, if I am getting angry instead of, I think a good example actually, there was one time that my dog, I went to get my dog groomed at the PetSmart, it was last minute. My mom was coming into town and very sheddy dog, and she has allergies, so I was like, I gotta get my dog groomed. Last minute, went to the PetSmart. There was some miscommunication, some lapse in phone calls or something, and when I go to pick up my dog, I found out that my dog has been sitting in a kennel afraid to come out all day, and immediately I was angry. I was why the hell did nobody try to reach me? Why did this, that? I got so angry, but the truth is, underneath that anger, which the anger was valid, it was real, it was there, but underneath the anger, it was no, I'm actually just afraid for my dog. I'm worried. I feel scared for my dog, and that's really scary to think about how sad he might have been all day, and rather than feel that, I'm gonna just get pissed off, right? Luckily, I was able to recognize it, slow myself down, and then instead of just going to the criticizing, the attacking, getting angry at the people at PetSmart, I just lots of deep breaths, huge deep breaths, recognize, okay, I'm not actually really angry as much as I am sad, confused, why there was all this miscommunication, all these different feelings, and then operated from that place instead. So when we actually operate from that place, it leads us to more intimacy, more connection, right? We seek that connection, we ask for what we really need, take care of what we actually need instead of just focusing on the anger. And then it actually pulls other people more towards you instead of pushes people away from you, right? So if I'm upset with somebody and I find out underneath I'm actually just feeling sad or scared, think about how if I approach that and I just get angry at them and point the finger at them versus me just being look, honestly, I just feel really sad about this whole situation. Which one is more connecting, right? Obviously attuning to the primary emotion. Yeah.
You're a really good person because I would have been really upset.
I was
That
upset.
situation. Honestly, they had one job.
Yeah, I mean, it was a whole thing.
I'm not sure how you'd let that one go.
Yeah, there was it was a lot of layers of writing down the wrong phone number and this and that. It was there was a whole thing that ultimately really wasn't slowed myself down, got my logical mind back in control instead of my hippocampus or my amygdala just firing off, because it was, trust me, I was like real worked up. And I was like, okay, I'm worked up. Regulate, get my thinking brain back online, approach the situation, talk to them rationally, calmly, found out, okay, there's just like a perfect storm of a lot of really random things that happened that led to this. It's not actually anybody's fault. Worked out okay. Got my dog groomed for free the next day.
Well, yeah,
so.
okay, so there you go. At least that happened.
It worked out, right? Yeah.
Puppy was okay.
So let's talk about this from the context of like your individual spirals as people, right? So let's, I have some paper here. Should have some paper. Aha. All right. Take a piece of paper. Got some markers here. And we're going to talk about our individual spirals that we go down, which stems off of, the ABCs from cognitive behavioral therapy. So go ahead and take a piece of paper.
There's also space on the back of those packets.
There is also space on the back of the packet. Yes. If you want to save some paper. But I did bring paper just in case. Folks at home, if you want to grab a blank piece of paper, if you're into doing this, this is really good self-awareness right here. This is where you just get to put all your cards out on the table, call yourself out, and see if you can break these spirals that people tend to go into. Okay, so going back to the ABCs, we'll start here. Before we even get into the ABCs, what we have here is our weather, or sometimes called climate. So basically, before the trigger event actually happens, it goes back to what we were talking about before. Did I have my nap? Am I well fed right now? Am I hydrated? Did I, just get off a really stressful work call? Like, what's going on before the trigger actually happens that may contribute? A good acronym that I've heard is HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Like, are you just kind of walking around with any of those feelings before any of this comes into place? So I'll go through this, and if you want, you can just think of a specific situation that maybe got you angry and apply these, write these down for yourself. So then, boom, we have our A from the ABCs. Outside of all this, we have the weather, we have our activating event. A thing happens, right? So I'm running late to work. That's part of my weather. Person cuts me off in traffic. Boom, activating event. Next, we have our beliefs and self-talk. That guy's a jerk. He thinks he's better than me. He's selfish. Consequence, I'm feeling frustrated. Consequence could be I'm cursing to myself, flipping him off, whatever it might be. Then, there's another activating event, right? The guy sees me flip him off, and then, he's yelling at me out his car window, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Something else happens as a result of me kind of setting myself up, right? And then we have other beliefs, self-talk, etc. So the whole idea is these just kind of go around and around and around, right? So one activating event leads to beliefs and self-talk and consequential emotions and behaviors, which lead to another activating event, which leads to beliefs and self-talk, consequential emotions, which lead to another activating event, which leads to beliefs, self-talk, consequential emotions, right? So, another example could be, weather. I had a really stressful day at work, activating event. I come home, my partner is like telling me, that I, need to clean the dishes better, believe self-talk, oh, they don't understand, I'm like really pissed off, consequential emotions, I, go get drunk or something, right? That's another activating event. I'm drunk. I come home from the bar and maybe from there I have somebody telling me, hey, like, you went out drinking again, whatever, getting down on me for that. I have my belief self-talk about that. They're so judgy. I just need to relax, whatever it might be. Consequential emotions and behaviors. I start screaming and yelling, right? Activating event. Partner is like, I'm done, I'm walking out, leaves, right? Belief self-talk, I'm, oh, they're, such a jerk, they don't understand me, whatever. Do you guys see what I'm getting at here? There's like a progression, it's like a spiral that you find yourself going into. One thing leads to another, a domino effect of just all these different things that are happening because you're not aware of your beliefs and self-talk. Now, granted, you can also have like positive versions of this. It's not all bad, right? Like there can be a positive spiral where it's like, activating event, go for a nice walk during the day, and then, belief self-talk. It's really nice out. I'm going to go sit on my patio, and then start talking to my neighbor and like this and that. Like there can be positive versions of this. This is just meant to really illustrate the fact that our life is just one series of beliefs and self-talk into another series of beliefs and self-talk that eventually create our whole reality. And if you can start to take some ownership over this, then you literally can change your reality. So once you notice that you're spiraling, well, do something about it. So how do we notice when we're spiraling? We have signals, internal and external signals, right? Internal signals would be like things that only you notice. My chest is really tight. I feel really hot. I have racing thoughts, right? External signals are signals that anybody else can see. You're clamming up, you're not talking, your fists are clenched, you're pacing around the room, you're raising your voice, right? So the internal signals, what you feel on the inside that nobody else can see or feel, and then external is what can other people notice about you. So take some time, fill out this for yourself, maybe throw in about 3-ish activating events in like a classic spiral for you. More if you know that there's like a progression that tends to happen more. Make sure you talk about what weather will contribute to that spiral, and then talk about what your signals are, internal and external. So once it's like this idea, name it to tame it. Right? Like I know this is how I tend to operate, especially like with anger, like if I know that this is how I get angry and this is what it leads to and then this is what that leads to, name it, bring awareness to it, and then you could probably end up stopping it at some point. few folks who are still working, but does anybody feel like sharing anything from theirs?
I have one I'd like to share.
Yeah.
This was a lot of years ago. I was married, and at the time we had decided we were getting a divorce. Based on my own personal beliefs in this situation, it was definitely pointing the finger at the other person. A lot of it, actually, now that I look at it, was I led myself to this point, and in the moment I couldn't see that, so I was so angry at the other person that I let it take away any skills of judgment, of understanding how to actually approach this. And one day we had a really bad argument that was, you know, in regards to what had happened, what I felt was, you know, the problem at that point. And I needed to go to the store to grab diapers for our son. And I ended up driving way too fast, and I crashed into another car. And, you know, that was kind of the consequence and the emotions. And in that moment, I was still blaming her as if it was her fault. She wasn't even in the car. You know, I didn't take the time to let it go after the fact. Once I got in my car, you know, I was still letting this anger take over me, to the point where then I was driving recklessly, putting myself in danger is kind of how it ended up. And the consequence in the end was I crashed my car. You know what I mean? She had nothing to do with this. And there I was trying to blame her, you know, putting it on her as if it was something she had done. If I had just taken the time to just kind of like breathe, you know, take the moment to let that anger go before going to the store, I would just driven to the store and it would have been normal. And in fact, I probably could have like thought of a different approach for when I got back, instead of just letting that anger fester and continue to like just spiral, just like you were saying, where it was like, you know, the one thing led to so many, the spiral that just like, I couldn't stop spiraling at that point, you know, sitting there trying to get my car towed, and I'm thinking it's her fault, you know, like how ridiculous is that in that moment, you know?
Yeah, but it's easy to do, you know, and once you notice, okay, like, here I am, second activating event is like, okay, I just crashed my car, you know, the signals, like one external signal could be, like, if I'm driving fast. I know for me, that's definitely a signal for me. If I'm driving really fast, it's like, okay, this is a sign for me that something's going on, and let me slow myself down, regulate a little bit, because if I do get in a car accident while I'm already in a spiral, then it's probably just going to get worse unless I'm like really self-aware, right? Thanks for sharing. Anybody else feel like sharing? Oh, we got a ding. Who we got?
Let's see.
Ariana coming in clutch with the digital engagement.
Me again.
Hello. Thank you so much for your digital engagement here.
Hi.
Hi,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? We can hear you. Yes.
Sick. Yep,
Yep, I can. So
my
weather for mine was not ideal situations. We were drunk and just gotten out of the hot tub, and I was hungry. And the argument was with the next partner. So that was kind of the activating event. Was he said some mean things to me and acted out of jealousy and stuff like that. So my belief was that he hates me, he thinks I'm a slut, he's a bad friend, he doesn't respect me, and he's an asshole. So fuck him, you know. Pain. Of course my dog starts playing with his squeaky toy right now.
Of course.
The consequence was that the argument ensued. We were screaming at each other. You know, it wasn't pretty, and eventually I just couldn't reason with him. I was trying to just, you know, de-escalate and walk away, and violence ensued. So the activating event or the result was that I ended up leaving, removing myself from the situation, and causing which caused obviously no more fighting, but caused another internal belief of spiral of you know, they're an asshole, I hate them, I never want to talk to them again, you know, they just hate me, stuff like that. And then my internal signals were like I was clenched, I was sweaty, I was hot, I was obviously drunk, I was just tense. And then external signals were I was flustered, angry, clenched hands and stuff like that. But obviously the spiral was just the fact that I continued to think about it after the event happened. Like, what have I done? Like, wow, I was a shitty person. Like, I could have handled that better. Like, I'm a monster. You know, I hate myself. I hate him. So yeah.
And then can I ask you?
It takes a lot to reflect on it, but it's
yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you being so real with us and sharing that. You know, and I'm wondering, like, did those feelings of, like, you know, the shame, the, you know, disappointment in yourself, did that lead to potentially other, you know, activating events? You know, whether it's a positive activating event, you know, where it's like, okay, like maybe this is a wake up call, or another negative one where it's like, I'm feeling really bad about myself, and you know, like, did those feelings themselves lead to?
It definitely did. It led. It definitely did. It led to a lot of like self-examination of like, this isn't who I would want to display myself as. This isn't how I would want to deal with conflict. This isn't a person that I don't even, I don't want them in. I want them in my life. So it did lead to a positive outcome. Obviously not that day, but it did lead to kind of a self-evaluation of, how can I stop this spiral of anger between us and also in myself. And it did lead to, luckily, a discussion where we, put everything out on the table, and everything, was fine after that. But yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like then was the time to start addressing more of those primary emotions that were felt that night, instead of just the anger, the secondary emotion that was covering all of it.
Yeah, definitely. I wish that I had those. this honestly, because I mean, I hadn't thought about the fact that maybe the issue wasn't anger, it was jealousy with the other person, or hurt, like they were hurt, like sad, and also with me, like I didn't even think about those emotions in that moment, and definitely now it's walking away is your greatest strength in those moments for sure, but it leads you to definitely think about, okay, what was I really feeling? Was I upset because I was, I'm sad. I feel like that was uncalled for, so.
Realistically, anytime I find myself getting angry, first thing I ask myself, what else is there? Like, what else is there besides the anger? And I would, for myself, 10 out of 10 times, I'm yet for myself to come across a single moment where I've asked myself that question and I can't identify at least one other primary emotion that I'm feeling that's a little bit scarier than to feel that than it is to feel anger in that moment. So if there's one takeaway from this whole thing, it's, when you find yourself getting angry, ask yourself, what else is there? And you might be surprised at what you take time and discover for yourself, which usually it's, I'm hurt, I'm sad, I'm this and that, So, cool.
You lost your...
Oh, there we go.
Did it turn on?
It turned on.
There we go.
Okay, so we talked, how do we escape the spiral, right? A lot of things that we just talked about.
I had a question. So how would you recommend getting the other person involved to that question? Like, what's like an alternative to anger? Do you know what I mean? Without like creating an escalation.
Yeah, without like patronizing them.
Depends on the person.
Yeah,
and, the situation, but like generally speaking, just in your expert opinion, like what would be the best way to approach that and getting them to that headspace as well?
Yeah, just asking the question, like, is there anything else that you're feeling besides anger? And like just asking that question right there, and sometimes they might need to a little bit of leading, especially if they are very not emotionally attuned to themselves.
Right.
You know, they'd be like, I'm just feeling anger. And it's like, are you sure? And then you can start guessing. Just be like, are you also feeling sad? Are you feeling hurt? Are you feeling jealous? Are you feeling disrespected?
With
Like
a drunken situation too, it's like a little bit more challenging.
Oh yeah, I would avoid it. I would just be like, hey,
We'll talk
about this in the
later.
morning. You know, like if they're really drunk, you know, like talk about like you know when you're escalated, your thinking brain is already turned off. You don't want to compound that with alcohol, which is why like people make such rash decisions when they're drunk, is because literally your thinking brain is turned offline. And that's why people tend to you know get into fights when they're drunk, because their thinking brain is turned off. They tend to go into a fight response to you know when their amygdala is turned on, and you know that's just my inhibitions are. So to answer your question, you know it's just ask them like, look, are you feeling anything else besides anger? Is there anything else underneath the anger that you're feeling? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling hurt? You know, and just invite them to share like what else is going on. And it's not to say, oh, you're not feeling angry. Like, no, the anger is valid. They are feeling angry.
Yes, you're not.
Just it's the tip of the iceberg. That's the very top of the iceberg, and then there's 90% of the iceberg underneath. So to escape the spiral, really like the best things to do is just, you know, find out for yourself what works for you. For me, I'm in a spiral. I take my dog for a walk. I take my dog for a walk, appreciate the weather, you know, get some exercise. Movement, I think, is a huge one in general with our amygdala, because it helps send signals that we've escaped the danger or we fought the danger without actually needing to run away or fight something, you know. So like if you just do like push-ups, jumping jacks, this and that, like literally there's a primitive part of our brain that's like, okay, like we're good, like the stress hormones move through our body and we've probably escaped the danger because we're not dead, so we're good, right? So physical exercise, great way. Playing an instrument, you know, like just especially because the instrument is like rhythmic, you know, there's a lot to be said about like rhythm, you know, when you're feeling some type of way, like regulates. So like tapping, like all these little things that you can do, but you just have to figure out what works for you. So real quick, just shout them out. What are some things that you do to escape your spirals? What works for you?
Ice cream.
Ice cream, breathing, nature, right? Anybody else?
Cry.
Yeah, cry.
Freaking cry.
Attuning to the
Giving out
to the
a
primary
scream.
emotion, right? What was that, Elise?
Letting out a scream.
Yeah, just scream. You know, it feels good
Be like, you know, I
sometimes.
am angry. I'm gonna let this out.
Yeah.
Sound is a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, music, definitely.
Music
sound is a
for
good
sure.
way to do it.
You want to be careful if you listen to like a lot of heavy metal, could reinforce it maybe. So,
Breathe.
but yeah, just you got to
Yeah,
figure these
for-
out for yourself,
Drink
right?
some water.
1.5 million things. Everyone knows like, oh, do this, you might feel better. Like you just got to figure out for yourself and figure out, you know, your specific flavor. Sometimes it's being around people. Sometimes it's not being around people. Sometimes it's listening to music. Sometimes it's sitting in silence. Just figure it out for yourself.
A little hot bath.
Hot bath, good one.
Going for car drive, loud music and street to good music also.
Totally.
Calling someone.
So that's the once you notice that you're in the spiral, then that's the time to do one of those things. The minute you notice, the second, and it takes some training, because there's also going to be this part of your brain that's just like, I don't want to change, right? So like, yeah. So with that, you know, it's like you have to have the mental fortitude to A, recognize that you're in a spiral, and B, be willing to do something about it. You know, because it's like the minute you notice it, all of its power goes away if you allow it to go away. So real quick, we'll talk about communicating our feelings. I want to just be mindful of time here. Oh man, just so much good conversation. So this is a really good formula for communicating how you feel, whether you're feeling angry, happy, sad, whatever it is. It's going to feel a little formulaic when we go through it, but eventually, like as long as you hit all the main components, it starts to feel more conversational. So a really good way to start. I feel blank. These are the emotions. I feel sad, right? I feel happy, I feel angry, I feel whatever it is. I feel insert emotions here. Number 2, I feel this way when objective snapshot of what happens. Not, I feel this way when you're an asshole to me. It's, no, I feel this way when you said this specific thing to me. I feel this way when I walked into the apartment. I feel this way when whatever it is, like objective. That's it. No judgment, no perception, no a dramatic flair to it. You are describing in objective terms when you've started feeling this emotion. Can't argue with it. I feel this way because I think, or I feel this way because I believe. Insert the B from the ABCs. I feel sad. I feel this way when I came home and I saw that the dishes weren't taken care of. I feel this way because I believe you not washing the dishes is disrespectful and that you don't respect me, or whatever. And then optional here, you can throw in a hope. I hope in the future that you can take care of the dishes. Right. So generally, that's actually a little bit more of a feedback kind of format. And we're going to talk about feedback too. But even just like, I feel sad because I lost my job and I'm worried that I'm not going to find another good one. Right. That's my belief about the situation. So, you guys need to.
Is there a printout of this one?
No.